Hey, what's going on, No Nation? It's CJ Wilson here with Dope Talk. It's been a while since we've been on the trail to talk about recruiting a little bit. I figure we'll go ahead and touch on some things in regards to FSU recruiting, what they've been doing. Since we're on this bye week and just moving forward for the rest of the recruiting process, let's get a little bit of information going on. So, again, On the Trail is brought to you by Realtor Jude Paul. Jude Paul is a realtor in Southwest Florida, but services the entire state of Florida. Any buy or selling your home, Jude is willing to donate 20% of the closing costs back to you. So again, if you're trying to buy a home and sell your home, 20% of that closing costs will be donated back to you. And also, Jude he's a node, right? He's willing to help. He wants to help out the nodes and things like that. So any proceed of your buy or sell, he will be willing to donate to the Battle Ends collection in regards to our student athletes to help further FSU athletics. So again, any percentage of your buy or sell, he's also willing to donate that to Battles End. You can contact Jude at www.homesfornose.com. Again, you can contact Jude at www.homesfornose.com. The FSU Realtor. Go Nose. All right, so we got some official visits on the market for FSU this upcoming weekend for Virginia Tech, and this is a big one, a huge one rather. Probably one of the most important prospects left on the FSU recruiting board, and that's defensive lineman L.J. McCray out of Daytona Beach, Mainland. He will be on campus for the official visit this weekend. Odell Haggis and Mike Norvell were in Daytona this past week during the bye week for the Daytona Mainland game, and of course, had some contact with L.J. McCray and Zay Mincy. He plans on committing around sometime around his birthday, which is going to be shortly after the official visit. His birthday is on October the 18th. So you have Auburn, UF, Georgia, Miami, and FSU as far as the finalists for LJ McCray. And he did make this statement recently in regards to the teams that's contending for his services. All right, so this is a direct quote from LJ McCray in regards to the schools that's vying for his services down the stretch. I really don't have a bad pick in my eyes, so it's tough. Every school checks every box for me. It's going to be super hard to know that feeling is going to be, to know what that feeling is going to be, when he gets it. So again, like I said, every team is pretty much real close down the stretch. But I do think it's more so a Florida, Georgia, and FSU battle. As you guys know, he hasn't been on campus since the spring, and he visited Florida multiple times over the summer. It was kind of concerning at first, but I do think FSU may have played their cards right a little bit. He did get on campus, but not necessarily get on campus. He did take an unofficial visit for the LSU game in Orlando, with Daytona Beach being right down the road. But again, to get him on campus for this official visit, this is his last official visit before his commitment. So again, like I can see this working both ways. I can see the lack of visits kind of hurting FSU with momentum for other schools. And I can also see this official visit putting FSU in the driver's seat with it being fresh in his mind, with his commitment looming within the nearing weeks. Excuse me. So again, I think FSU is in a good spot here. They've been actively recruiting LJ. They've been recruiting him. Hell, I think FSU was one of the first major P5 programs to offer LJ and recruit him early, as he was on campus multiple times during his early years for camps and things like that in Tallahassee. Dynamic playmaker, big time athlete, 6'6", has the frame to carry 300 pounds fairly easy and still move around and be a terror and a menace on the defensive line. I do think this is a big time recruitment for FSU and Mike Norvell to go ahead and close on, due to the simple fact of how important and how much of an emphasis, I should say, we need in regards to the defense line, and how that, translates to winning national championships and things like that. If you look at Alabama over the years, Georgia, Ohio State, those are the teams, hell, even Clemson, those are the teams that were pretty much competing for the playoffs and compete for the national championship on a regular basis. They focus on the defensive line and recruit very well within the trenches. So FSU has to do the same thing if they want to get on that same platform, on that same playing field, with the Georgias, the Ohio States, and like I said, Clemson at one point in time. I think LJ at this point in time, like I said, we're in a good spot for LJ. We'll see how this official visit does play out. If we could dominate Virginia Tech and have a pretty good atmosphere in Doak Campbell Stadium, I think we should be in a good spot leading up to his commitment. But we will have an update following his official visit, just to give you guys more information on LJ McCray. He is probably the most important uncommitted prospect for FSU down the stretch. We're going to stick with the defensive line a little bit, and this is an interesting one. A 6'6", 225 defensive end from Maryland, Lugard, and if I'm pronouncing the name wrong, please forgive me, Lugard Idokape. New offer. He's a guy that's been kind of exploding within the ranks as of late. A lot of P5s have offered him. He's a slow riser, but his high school film for a senior year has been very impressive. I checked it out, and you guys can see the highlights on the screen. Really athletic guy, gets after the quarterback. He plays some receiver as well, makes some plays down the field as a receiver. Really athletic, twitchy guy with his frame. He can do a lot of good things. Like I said, a lot of the blue blood, or excuse me, a lot of the P5 schools are starting to offer him as of late. He has offers from Minnesota, Texas A&M, Michigan State, Wisconsin, Pittsburgh, just to name a few of the P5 schools that have reached out to offer him. He did state he does plan to take an official visit to FSU. He's just in the process of scheduling and trying to figure out what works best, excuse me, for the official visit, just to get on the schedule. So it hasn't been locked in stone just as of yet, excuse me. But he did say that an official visit to FSU is in the works. Like I said, it was a bye week, so Mike Norvell was able to take the chopper out and give him the roll a little bit. Mike Norvell, one of the main stops he did have was to KJ Bolden in at Buford High School up in Georgia. Visited KJ Bolden over the weekend. Also, KJ did take an official visit to Auburn this past weekend for their big game against the Georgia Bulldogs. It was like I said, it was a big time atmosphere, and Auburn did play Georgia pretty close down the stretch. So big time atmosphere for the home game for Auburn. It was an electric crowd. Auburn brought all the stops too. They had Cam Newton in the building, Frank Thomas, the Hall of Fame baseball player, and of course Charles Barkley. He did state that he wants to get back to Auburn for the Iron Bowl. So it's going to be interesting how it plays down the stretch in regards to that. He did visit the University of Georgia the previous week. I do think the two teams rather that's contending for his services to try to get a flip from KJ Bolden is the Auburn Tigers and the Georgia Bulldogs. He did state that he is just a direct quote from KJ in regards to the visit. He said it was a good atmosphere and it made him look at Auburn differently. He still committed to FSU, but he still it did make him feel a little bit indifferent. Well, not necessarily feeling different about FSU, but look at Auburn a little bit differently. So my take on this, he also is going to be on campus for an official visit to FSU for the Virginia Tech game. So he's going to be on campus this upcoming weekend. And I said this before when the commitment kind of went down. FSU played this recruitment perfectly in my eyes, not burning an official visit with KJ Bolden over the summer and just using those visits over the summer as unofficial visits. So I said that to say this: he's going to be on campus for the FSU Miami game for an official visit. It's going to be a big time atmosphere, as you guys know how the Miami game plays out, especially at Doak Cameron Stadium. It's going to be a big time environment, big time atmosphere. So that's a good thing for FSU. I do think he's still locked in 100% with FSU, but at the end of the day, he did also state during this commitment he's going to take visits and things like that. When you have a player to KJ Bolden's caliber, the teams aren't just going to go away. They're going to recruit him to the end. I do think Auburn and Georgia are the only two schools that's pretty much lobbying for his services. So FSU still have to do their thing in regards to recruiting at KJ Bolden, keep putting the full court press on him. Get him on campus for the Virginia Tech game. Have a good showing, and of course, have a good showing for the Miami game. Roll out the red carpet on his official visit, and we should be okay and be in a good spot. So FSU keep doing what they're doing. I think they can hold off the rest of the teams for KJ Bolden to go ahead and lock up his signature once December does come. Grew up an FSU fan, so I do think that's rooted in his mind a little bit. I do think he's going to go ahead and stick with his commitment, but enjoy his process as well. Um, Sticking with Buford, like I said, Norvell was on campus, took the chopper up there. You got to look at Jordan Perlott, four-star linebacker that's committed to Georgia. I do think FSU is a good spot to go ahead and get a flip from Jordan to from Jordan to FSU from Georgia. A little tongue twister there, but I do think FSU is in a good spot to go ahead and get that flip once that time comes. He did say he's going to be on campus for the Duke game, so it's going to be a big time visit weekend for FSU as well. To get Jordan back on campus is always a plus. I do think they're in a good spot and sitting in a good situation for Jordan. Mike Norvell also visited three-star safety commit C.J. Hurd up in Georgia. And speaking of Georgia, we got a lot of Georgia commits and a lot of Georgia ties. No, Kirby Smart is pretty much tired of us being in Georgia. One guy that we did flip from the Georgia Bulldogs is five-star tight end Landon Thomas. A few weeks ago, he had a 3-touchdown game. So big time playmaker, still making a lot of plays for Colquitt County. I think he's going to be a dynamic player once he gets on campus. He's been real solid with his recruitment. After he committed to FSU, he's been real quiet on his front. I think he's one of the most important commits in this 2024 recruiting class for FSU. Last little take before we get up out of here for the segment of on the trail. Jeremiah Smith, the 5-star receiver from Chaminade down there in South Florida, said that he thinks that Keon Coleman is the best receiver in the country. So that's some big words coming from Jeremiah Smith, because as you guys know, Jeremiah Smith is committed to Ohio State. And Ohio State have, one of the best receivers in the country, Marvin Harrison Jr. So for him to say that in regards to Keon Coleman, that says a lot. I do know Jeremiah Smith enjoys the way FSU uses the bigger receivers in Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson. So if we keep doing what we're doing on the field as far as, producing good numbers within the passing game, within those receivers and things like that, I think FSU FSU is in a good spot for Jeremiah Smith as well. Just keep chipping away at your recruitment. He is committed to Ohio State, but he does plan on taking an official visit to FSU in December leading up to signing day. So we'll see how things play out down the stretch for Jeremiah Smith. But for him to say that in regards to Keon Coleman, keep your eyes open. Again, we will be having more information in regards to recruiting and on the trail. Another update for LJ McCray following his official visit, just to see how things went rather for his official visit and how we kind of stack up leading up into his commitment. So make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel. Go Noles.